I'm Karen, 33 years old, happily married to William, who's also 33, and together we have our precious 3-year-old daughter, Evelyn. William's family is deeply rooted in education. They run a successful tutoring center, with both his parents being former teachers and William holding a teaching license himself. Academia runs in their blood. It's surreal sometimes to think I'm part of such a distinguished family. Initially, my own parents and friends were apprehensive, but their worries were unfounded. The truth is, William's family is wonderful. Despite my more sporty inclinations, they embrace me wholeheartedly. My mother-in-law was especially delighted to gain a daughter. Though I felt a bit nervous initially, my buoyant and outgoing nature helped bridge any gaps. I chose to be authentically myself, and through that, we cultivated a strong and loving relationship. I'm a certified arborist, specializing in the health assessments, pruning, planting, and relocation of trees, along with offering consulting services. Achieving my certification required rigorous study, and even now, in the field, it remains physically demanding. This job demands both brains and brawn, and I take pride in excelling at both. Currently, my husband works as a tutor at his family's tutoring center, though he previously taught elementary school. Our paths first crossed when I visited his school for a consultation on tree care. After the birth of our daughter, I took some time for parental leave, only returning to work last year. With our little one still in her tender years, family takes precedence, a balance thankfully supported by my understanding workplace. Nonetheless, there are occasions when I struggle to make it home in time for pickup. In such moments, I'm grateful for the assistance of my mother-in-law and the flexibility of my husband, who steps in whenever possible. It's a life filled with fulfillment, supported by a network of understanding and assistance. In my married life, there was one individual who brought some challenges. My sister-in-law, married to my husband's brother. My husband has 2 siblings and he falls in the middle. The youngest brother remains unattached, while the eldest, Richard, is married to Sarah, the source of my concerns. Sarah is primarily a homemaker, but also lends a hand with the financial and administrative tasks at the tutoring center. She and Richard have a 5-year-old son, and it appears they're gearing up to enroll him in a private elementary school. The first encounter with Sarah, during a visit to my in-laws, revealed her distinct demeanor. She was petite, impeccably dressed, with neatly styled hair, and her smile was captivating. Yet beneath that exterior, there lay another side to her. It was in the midst of assisting my mother-in-law in the kitchen when Sarah momentarily stepped away. Suddenly, her tone transformed as she confronted me. "Could you not put more effort into your appearance?" I was taken aback. The Sarah who had just been smiling seemed like an entirely different person. "You always seem to wear clothes that are worn and unkempt. Don't you realize you stand out for the wrong reasons? It's embarrassing." These clothes are just practical for me, especially since I'm constantly chasing after my little daughter," I explained. "I understand, I have a child too," Sarah responded with an exaggerated sigh, hinting at more she wanted to convey. However, her demeanor swiftly reverted to its usual state upon seeing my mother-in-law approaching. "Oh, what's the conversation about?" my mother-in-law inquired as she re-entered the room. "Just chatting about childcare," I replied, noticing Sarah's rapid shift in tone. It was almost as if she had a built-in switch that activated whenever my mother-in-law was around. My mother-in-law gave me a quizzical look, silently asking if that was the case. "Yes, just discussing our kids," Sarah chimed in, appearing content with the explanation. Skinny Sarah's snide remarks didn't particularly intimidate me, but I couldn't easily brush off her level of sarcasm, especially without causing undue concern for my mother-in-law. It's not uncommon to hear about tensions with in-laws. It's practically a universal experience, what with the notorious mother-in-law factor. In contrast, my mother-in-law is a beacon of support, always championing my career endeavors. I initially believed I could deflect my sister-in-law's barbs effortlessly. However, every encounter seemed to escalate her belittling behavior. During a hurried work errand, I unexpectedly ran into Sarah, engaged in conversation with a group of her acquaintances. Offering a polite greeting, I acknowledged her presence. "Hello, Sarah." "Oh, hi there," came her response. Hastening on my way, I thought little of the brief interaction until later that evening when my home phone rang and Sarah's name flashed on the caller ID. "What do you think you're doing?" Sarah's voice sliced through the air, dripping with aggression. "Right from the start, Confused, I asked, "What do you mean, earlier today? Don't you dare come up to me in public dressed like that." Her tone was harsh, her words cutting. "What's with your work attire? It's utterly inappropriate to stroll around like that. Did you see us? We're all moms, getting our kids ready for private school entrance exams. We live in a different world from you." I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment as she continued her verbal assault without pause. "I was working, so yes, I was in my work clothes," I responded, trying to maintain composure. "I don't care about your excuses. Just steer clear of me next time we bump into each other outside, okay? It's embarrassing." "But isn't it even more awkward? We're family," I protested. "That's exactly my point," she shot back. "You don't fit into this family. Just so you know, I've never considered you a sister-in-law." With that, she abruptly ended the call, leaving me reeling from an unexpected onslaught of her feelings. It was clear she had gone out of her way to unload her frustrations. Despite her consistent complaints about me during family gatherings, it's when we're alone that my sister-in-law truly unveils her true colors. She prides herself on being a fashionable, high-society woman hailing from a well-to-do family. While I respect her preferences, I can't comprehend her incessant need to belittle me simply because I don't conform to her standards. Sure, she may sport elegant attire paired with athletic accessories, but why the excessive collection? I often wonder if her reserved husband, my brother-in-law, indulges her shopping sprees. Perhaps he's oblivious to this side of her personality. It's just part of who she is. I have refrained from sharing these observations with my brother-in-law and mother-in-law, opting to confide in my husband instead, given the mounting stress. "Really? She doesn't strike me as that type," he initially brushed it off. However, a few days later, my mother-in-law reached out, extending an invitation to a family dinner scheduled for the upcoming weekend. We live roughly 30 minutes apart by car. Typically, my mother-in-law doesn't meddle in our households. However, she insists on bringing the entire family together for special occasions like my father-in-law's birthday, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. This time, it was because my father-in-law's birthday was approaching. We managed to secure a private room at his favorite steakhouse this time around. It's our inaugural visit as a family, and the anticipation is palpable. "I hope you're looking forward to it," my mother-in-law remarked. "Oh, absolutely. Thank you," I replied, genuinely excited, albeit dreading the inevitable encounter with my sister-in-law. "You don't seem too thrilled. Is work keeping you busy?" she inquired. "Oh, I'm fine. Really," I quickly reassured her. "Uh-oh." Had my tone given away my apprehension, I hurriedly attempted to dispel any concern. "Karen, if there's anything troubling you at home, please don't hesitate to tell me, okay?" She pressed further. Our home. Everything's under control. Even when work keeps me late, you've been a tremendous help. I truly appreciate all your support," I responded. "It's not about your family, though," she clarified. "Ha!" I was puzzled, failing to grasp her meaning. The weekend finally arrived, ushering in the much-anticipated dinner party in honor of my father-in-law's birthday. It was an opportunity to shower him and my mother-in-law with gratitude. I made a silent vow to immerse myself in the celebration and not allow my sister-in-law's venomous demeanor to dampen my spirits. Setting out early from home, I entered the private room at the restaurant with a sense of relief. My father-in-law, mother-in-law, brother-in-law, and sister-in-law had yet to arrive. I'd arrived ahead of schedule to ensure my father-in-law wouldn't be kept waiting on his special day, and also, if I'm honest, to minimize any interaction with Sarah. However, just as I settled in, my brother-in-law and Sarah made their entrance. "Hello," I greeted them, mustering a polite smile. "Hi, Karen," Sarah responded coolly. "Richard, good to see you," I added, attempting to maintain a cordial atmosphere. While my husband and brother-in-law engaged in conversation, Sarah wasted no time in approaching me, her gaze sweeping me from head to toe before emitting an audible sigh. "What on earth are you wearing?" Sarah's disdainful remark sliced through the air, delivered in a hushed tone as if attempting to avoid detection. It was the usual start to her demeaning comments. I forced a tight-lipped smile, trying to maintain composure. "Is this really the appropriate time or place for this?" I questioned through clenched teeth. "I chose this dress with the occasion in mind. Is it not suitable? It's not like it's from some high-end brand or anything. It's rather surprising you'd show up in such a cheap ensemble," Sarah continued, her tone dripping with condescension. "And those shoulders of yours for a woman, they're quite broad. The dress doesn't flatter you at all. And your accessories? Just a wedding ring? And no nail polish. Your hands look rough." I bristled at her critique. "I can't wear nail polish for my job. Ever thought about how inconvenient it would be to do household chores with long nails, Sarah?" I countered. "My work involves handling wood and soil, in addition to household tasks. My hands may not be dainty, but they're a testament to my hard work as a gardener. These hands, these shoulders, they're my pride." But she continued to belittle them, and I couldn't hold back any longer. "What's that supposed to mean? Are you insinuating that I don't do housework?" My retort seemed to strike a nerve as Sarah's voice suddenly rose in volume. "I've had enough of you," Sarah seethed, her frustration bubbling over. "I've tried to extend a helping hand out of kindness, but you never listen. And now you're resisting. It's unbearable to be associated with a rough woman like you." Feeling the weight of her words, Sarah seemed to momentarily lose her grip on reality and the context of the situation. "I've made a mistake," she murmured, her anger clouding her judgment. "Today is my father-in-law's celebration. Please just leave me alone." Confusion mingled with hurt as I struggled to comprehend her sudden outburst. "What? You're the one causing a scene. You're the one who doesn't fit into this family," I retorted, my patience wearing thin. "I've already told you I won't dine with someone as uncouth as you. Just go home." "Excuse me, I have to go home. This dinner was arranged by my mother-in-law, and the one clearly disrupting it is her. We can address your grievances about me later. Trust me, I have a few things to say to you as well. But for now, I've made up my mind to stand my ground. And you? You don't get to speak to me that way. Did you hear me? I said go home. In fact, consider leaving this family." Just as my husband began to approach, responding to Sarah's escalating voice, the door to the private room swung open. "It's you who should be leaving," my mother-in-law entered calmly yet assertively. Following her were my father-in-law and their youngest son, John. My mother-in-law gently shut the door behind them, signaling the end of the confrontation. "What?" Sarah's fiery demeanor seemed to evaporate as she suddenly realized the gravity of the situation. Her mouth opened and closed in disbelief, words failing her momentarily. What's going on?" "Everyone please, let's sit down," she stammered, attempting to regain control. Despite her soft tone, there was an undeniable authority in my mother-in-law's presence that compelled everyone to comply. "It appears we need to address something before we can proceed with the birthday celebration. I apologize for this disruption," my mother-in-law continued, glancing at my father-in-law, who nodded in agreement, before turning her attention back to Sarah. "Sarah, what exactly did you say to Karen?" Even my typically gentle mother-in-law could wield a sharp edge of sarcasm when necessary. Sarah, visibly flustered, attempted to backtrack. "Oh, I was just saying how much I'm looking forward to the meal today. Did I mishear something? I thought I heard someone saying leave." "Huh? No, it was just a minor disagreement, just a playful banter." Sarah attempted to downplay the situation, still visibly perturbed. I couldn't help but admire her attempt to restore her usual cheerful facade. "A disagreement? What sparked it? It appeared you were the one dominating the conversation. Have you been treating Karen like this all along?" My mother-in-law's gaze bored into Sarah, her words cutting through the tension like a sharp blade. "I wasn't mistreating her. I was merely offering some advice on etiquette and attire as a senior member of this household." Sarah defended herself, though her explanation rang hollow. "Everyone should have the freedom to dress as they please as long as it's respectful. Karen's attire wasn't out of place. She simply chose non-branded clothing and kept her makeup and accessories minimal. I thought she should avoid causing embarrassment for you and the rest of us." Enough. My mother-in-law's sudden outburst startled both Sarah and me. The three brothers and my father-in-law were well aware of how formidable my mother-in-law could be when injured, but they remained composed, diverting their attention to the children with picture books and gentle conversation to ease the tension. "No, Sarah, it's you who should be feeling embarrassed. I've sensed something amiss between you two, even during gatherings at our home. Initially, I assumed you were engaged in friendly chats," my mother-in-law continued, her tone cutting through the air with precision. "Huh? Yes, friendly chats, exactly," Sarah chimed in, her desperation evident in her eyes as she cast a pleading glance my way. However, avoided meeting her gaze. "For the record, Karen never once complained about you. She extended kindness, hoping you might eventually change your approach, but instead, you chose to escalate," my mother-in-law asserted, her words carrying a weight of disappointment. Stammering, Sarah attempted to formulate a response, only to be met with my mother-in-law's unwavering scrutiny. And you always dress impeccably with an extensive collection of handbags. My mother-in-law continued, her tone growing sharper. But where does all that money come from? Just as Sarah thought she had regained control of the conversation, an unexpected question left her stunned. That money, it comes from we compensate you for your assistance with the tutoring center's finances, she stammered, her attempt at an explanation faltering. Even if my son has given you permission to use those funds as you see fit, it hardly seems sufficient to account for your lavish purchases of designer clothes and handbags. Well, you see, Sarah began, her voice trailing off as my mother-in-law's pointed inquiry pierced the air. Are you taking advantage of your position overseeing the household finances to fulfill your own desires? My mother-in-law pressed further. What do you mean? Sarah's confusion was palpable, her words stumbling over each other in a desperate attempt to deflect the accusation. I couldn't help but share in her confusion. I, too, had often wondered about the source of their wealth. Initially, I had assumed my brother-in-law was simply a generous provider. Perhaps he entrusted all financial matters to Sarah. It troubled me to think he might have been oblivious to their spending habits, perhaps swayed by Sarah's facade of being a dutiful wife. In that light, I almost felt sorry for him. So, you've been splurging recklessly, and now you're considering sending your child to a private school? My mother-in-law queried. Surely, you've been setting aside funds for their education, haven't you? Well, you're not suggesting we foot the bill, are you? Sarah hesitated, her response tinged with uncertainty. No, not at all, but he's your beloved grandchild after all. It became clear that Sarah had been counting on my father-in-law and mother-in-law's financial support all along. Naturally, we adore our grandchildren. We're prepared to assist them financially if necessary, my mother-in-law affirmed. Really? But only after you're no longer living under our roof? I interjected, taken aback by the implications. What? No, that's not what I meant. I apologize for telling you to leave, Karen, Sarah interjected, addressing me by name for the first time. You'll forgive me, won't you? We're practically sisters, after all. Sisters only as long as you're married to my brother-in-law. My mother-in-law glanced at me, silently encouraging me to continue. Even if it's official, I don't want to consider you family. I don't see you as a sister, I stated firmly. Sarah's response was a startled noise, clearly caught off guard. And that's not all. It seems you've been dipping into the funds from the tutoring school, my mother-in-law continued, her words landing like a bombshell. Sarah was rendered speechless, her eyes widening in shock. Is that true? I couldn't hide my surprise at my mother-in-law's revelation. While I had suspected Sarah might be using household funds, I never imagined she would touch the money from the tutoring school operated by my in-laws. You managed to evade detection for some time, so it took us a while to uncover your actions. Even Bob, who has overseen our accounts for years, fell victim to your manipulation, my mother-in-law continued, her tone stern. Sarah's complexion paled visibly. You've been making purchases like gift baskets for our suppliers, showing appreciation to teachers, and hosting seminars, all under your purview. The expenses on the receipts gradually escalated. You offered excuses, claiming you were fulfilling birthday gift requests or acting on behalf of me or my son. But that's simply not. Sarah interjected, her voice shaky, attempting to deny the accusations. You've been purchasing items under false pretenses, mislabeling them as gifts. This is unprecedented, but Bob trusted you as our son's wife. He was informed that you were treating part-time lecturers to lunch, but in reality, you were indulging in tea and dining with your circle of friends, my mother-in-law continued, her disappointment evident in her voice. The suspicious transactions on the receipts began to multiply, and Bob eventually brought his concerns to our attention. Even before that, our son had initiated an inquiry after noticing irregularities, she added, her tone growing increasingly grave. What? You've betrayed the trust of everyone who believed in you. It appears that appearances matter more to you than anything else, my mother-in-law accused. Sarah turned to my brother-in-law, as if pleading for assistance, her voice barely above a whisper. However, he met her gaze with a cold stare, remaining silent. And if all these allegations hold true, I can hardly blame him, my mother-in-law continued, her gaze shifting to me. Karen, on the other hand, is the epitome of selflessness. While she may not prioritize fashion, she consistently places the needs of her family and her profession above her own. You may not take an interest in her work, but being a certified arborist is a remarkable achievement. I have no doubt she worked diligently to attain it. As Sarah sat there, rendered speechless and defeated, my mother-in-law shifted her focus to me. Unintentionally, tears welled up in my eyes at her unexpected words. "I admire her," my mother-in-law began, her voice carrying a tone of genuine respect. "I believe that if she wishes to continue her work, it's our duty to support her. Have you ever witnessed her in action? She's vibrant, unafraid to get her hands dirty or soil her clothes. And yet, you ridicule her." I remained silent, overcome with emotion, while Sarah was unable to muster any retort or defense. She simply hung her head in shame. "While our tutoring school may not boast the grandeur of major corporations, we prioritize our teachers and students, earning their trust," my mother-in-law continued, her words resolute. "We've steadily grown by addressing each student's unique needs and those of their families. What truly matters are the people and their hearts. It's you who doesn't belong here. It's you who should leave." My mother-in-law's decisive stance left an indelible impression on me. Sarah, who had meticulously crafted an image of a flawless, sophisticated wife, was abruptly ousted from her affluent family. Despite attempts at reconciliation from my brother-in-law, Sarah's refusal to acknowledge her misdeeds and her simmering anger led to the serving of divorce papers. With the truth of her embezzlement exposed, Sarah's hopes for compensation vanished, leaving her with nothing. Meanwhile, my brother-in-law, supported by our father-in-law and mother-in-law, vowed to maintain stability for their son. Sarah, who habitually prioritized her own desires, would vent her frustrations onto her son when things didn't go her way. Yet the young boy remained resolute, finding solace in the reassurances of his father and grandparents. Although Sarah had insisted on sending him to a private elementary school against his wishes, he now enjoys carefree days spent playing with our daughter, free from the pressures of forced academics. Naturally, my husband and I are eager to offer our support in any way possible. During a relaxed day spent at my in-laws' home, my mother-in-law approached me with a heartfelt apology. "I deeply regret any discomfort we may have caused you. We should have been more observant," she expressed sincerely. "Oh, please don't worry about it. I wasn't truly bothered initially," I reassured her. "If you ever find yourself in need of assistance in the future, please don't hesitate to reach out to us," she offered kindly. "Yes," I replied, recalling her earlier sentiment, "what's important is people and hearts." Suddenly, I noticed my mother-in-law's puzzled expression as I gazed at her intently. "It's nothing. I was simply admiring your resilience," I clarified. "Well, thank you, but the real admiration should be directed towards you and your talent for creating such stunning gardens," she countered graciously. "Perhaps I'll enlist your help with ours next time. I've been meaning to replant the flower beds." "Oh, definitely. I'd be thrilled to lend a hand, even if it's just for fun. Just give me a shout whenever you're ready," I responded eagerly. "You should consider charging her, Mom. She can be quite demanding," my husband interjected with a playful tone, eliciting laughter from all of us. It was a moment of genuine warmth and camaraderie. "Value people, cherish hearts." Those words echoed in my mind, leaving a lasting impression. As I looked around at my beloved family, I made a silent vow to treasure these moments and to prioritize laughter and joy in our future together.